The dreaded roommate phase in a relationship, sometimes known as roommate syndrome, is a phenomenon in couples therapy, and it's one I see a lot here in my private practice. It's always really sad when romantic partners tell me how things have shifted from candlelit dinners to just cohabitation as partners. Hopefully, that is not where you're at in your relationship, but if that does sound familiar or it's something you're afraid that might be happening in your relationship, you're going to want to stick around as I'll share the strongest predictors of this pattern and, more importantly, what you can do about it. Along the way, I'll share some of the data that I've analyzed from the couples intimacy quiz that I created, which tracks the 4 pillars of relationship success. But before I go there, if we've not met, my name is Oliver. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I love helping couples reconnect and escape that roommate phase in a relationship. Let's get clear on what love actually is and why this stage, as uncomfortable as it is quite normal. I've got to get you on board with the idea that love is not a static state that sticks around forever. I know it's not what Disney promised us. Love is fundamentally dynamic in nature. It changes and evolves over the course of a relationship. And the reason it changes are the inevitable result of each of its 3 components: intimacy, passion, and commitment. And those follow very different temporal courses. First of all, we've got passion. This is the hot motivational component of love, and it refers to the drives that lead to romance, physical attraction, chemistry, and some bedroom activities. Passion is not limited to sex, though. It can also encompass needs for self-esteem, nurturance, but it is the least stable and least controllable of the 3 components, and often comes and goes quite unpredictably. It's all about arousal, somatic symptoms like an increased heartbeat, but also chemical changes that are all about sex and the physical nature of a relationship. If passion is hot, then decision or commitment part of love is kind of cold. It's the cognitive element of love, and it consists of 2 aspects: a short-term decision that you love someone and a long-term commitment to maintain that love. It's largely derived from cognitive decisions we make about the relationship and the person we're with. Intimacy then is the warm component of love. It encompasses feelings of closeness, connectedness, bonding in a loving relationship. It comes from the emotional investment in our relationships and forms the emotional sort of foundation for any healthy partnership. So already you might be able to take a guess as to which corner of the triangle is almost absent in couples who are in the roommate phase. Let me back this up though, because I crunched the numbers of over 1,300 people who took the relationship intimacy quiz, and I found that the single strongest predictor of the roommate syndrome is a lack of deep conversations. Nearly 65% of people say that they rarely or almost never discuss emotionally significant topics like fears, dreams, insecurities. And if we tie that back into the triangle of love, talking deeply is absolutely part of intimacy. Before I help you understand what to do about this, let me take you on a journey of what a relationship looks like, because it's really important to see how relationships change over time. The first phase is the honeymoon phase, and let's imagine you met your partner and it was all fireworks and rainbows and unicorns like a Katy Perry video. The experience you had was probably all about that intense, passionate arousal. You didn't know each other very well, so there's very little intimacy. And of course, because you've just met, there's no conscious decision of commitment. It's all fiery, it's intense, it's all consuming, it's very exciting. Assuming this part goes well, then you can start developing more intimacy by talking about your feelings, your fears, sharing more of your inner world. So we were introducing another component of the triangle of love, intimacy. And as you do this, there's a fusion of the warm feelings of closeness, connectedness, maybe feeling more bonded or more secure. And at the same time, there's that hot drive of passion still bubbling in the background. Now you are in romantic love. You've got some passion, you're building up intimacy, and you know you're experiencing romantic love because you're not only drawn physically to each other, but you're also starting to bond emotionally. You kind of start caring about them. So there's more support, more sharing, more understanding alongside that desire and physical attraction. Now, this can turn into a long-term relationship when we introduce the third part of love, which is that cognitive aspect, and you decide to commit to that person because you like who they are, it feels good to be with them, and maybe there's still some passion and connection there. So you can already see that it's very natural for the quality of a relationship to change over time. And even more natural that passion fizzles out. Remember, is the least stable and least controllable part of this triangle of love. But why does it change and how do you get out of it? Well, I've already shared that the single strongest predictor of the roommate syndrome is a lack of deep conversations. So about 64% of people who took the quiz said that their relationship is feeling more like they're in the roommate stage. And oddly enough, that number almost perfectly matches 65% of people who also say that they rarely or almost never discuss emotionally rich, significant topics like their fears and dreams and insecurities. But the raw data also shows that individuals reporting the roommate phase often have communication scores in the 10 to 40% range, which is well below the average. So it's not just talking about feelings, it's talking in general. This happens really often in relationships. So let's go back to that honeymoon phase where you were all giddy with excitement and it was all butterflies in your stomach. I guarantee that the conversations you were having were all about getting to know each other. What's your favorite color? Me too. Oh my gosh, I'm the same. What's your favorite food? I love Italian too. That's crazy. The point is, back in the day, you were curious. You were getting to know each other and it was all exciting and novel and you didn't really know them. That almost totally stops though in long-term relationships, partly because you literally know all there is to know about your partner, but also because we assume we know all there is to know, which is not entirely true. If we allow that assumption to take over, deep, meaningful conversations totally fizzle out. So tip number one here is start being curious. Even if you think you know what your partner's going to say, even if you think you know the answer to their question, there's still a conversation to be had. Curiosity kills the cat, but in couples therapy, it doesn't kill anything. But obviously, it's not quite so simple as just being curious, because overlapping with the lack of curiosity and deeper conversations is another part of communication that is vital. And it's all to do with how well people who took the quiz assessed their partner's ability to listen. When it comes to people who feel like they're in the roommate phase, it became very clear looking at the data that any idea of looking for emotional support from their partner is not going to happen. 75% of people who said they were in this roommate phase find their partner's attempts at listening to their issues to be unreliable at best. At worst, for more than a quarter of them, their partner's attempts to listen to their problems actively made them feel worse. You know, that makes total sense to me. Why would you have deep conversations with someone who can't listen? Tip number 2 here, it's something obvious, is probably annoying, but I'm going to point it out anyway. How would your partner rate your listening skills? We can't necessarily change how well our partner listens unless you force them to watch this video, of course, but you can work on your own ability to listen well. Things get a bit more complicated in the roommate phase when it comes to conflict, and it's hard to know if this particular aspect of conflict resolution is a cause or an effect of the roommate phase. But either way, it seems that for 87% of this group, conflict is never productive. 87% of people who say they're in the roommate phase say that disagreements escalate into fights or become really hurtful. So just to back up a little bit, disagreements are normal. You can't expect to have entirely the same thoughts, beliefs, and opinions with your partner. You have different families, different backgrounds. There's a lot of differences. But how you handle these differences and disagreements is what makes the difference to your relationship score. Ideally, conflict can help us feel closer and understand each other. But for couples in the roommate phase, conflict is a catalyst for further damage. And to my point, nearly 70% of couples living like roommates are in relationships where one or both partners will often or always shut down and withdraw during an argument. And this is a really troubling trait that I see a lot in my private practice. It's a unilateral decision to end engagement, retreat into separate corners, but it reinforces the emotional and physical distance that defines this roommate phase. According to my data, over half, like 56% or so of people who feel like they're roommates with their partner also report that their partner holds on to grudges, even after an apology has been offered. When someone refuses to talk to you, it's a way of holding on to power. So the silent treatment is hostile and hurtful, absolutely, but it also creates a power imbalance. So what do you do about the roommate syndrome? Well, there's a lot of work to be done, but The intimacy quiz for couples that I created breaks the results down into the 4 pillars of relationship success. If you take the quiz, you might have an idea of where to start. And the good news is that some of these 4 areas are things that you can learn from other videos online or by reading books or just getting more resources. And at the same time, if it was that easy to fix, we'd all be in healthy relationships. So at some point, you might need to get some backup in the forms of a couples therapist or couples counseling. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're never taught the skills that we actually need in high school to handle relationships or to talk effectively or to talk about our feelings. So counselors and therapists like myself are there to help with this. Most couples wait 6 years before getting help with their relationship, so don't leave it that long. But if you're not convinced that therapy is right for you, let's look at the 4 pillars of relationship success. Communication. We can all learn the difference between listening to learn and listening to lecture, and we can practice that. We can try and understand our partner's communication styles, and we can see how different it is from ours. We could also learn how we block communication with our partners. There's at least 8 different ways that we block communication with our partner and try and undo those bad habits that we picked up. Communication overlaps with intimacy too, because we have to be able to talk about our feelings. So go download that feelings wheel. We need to know how to use I statements and know how to react when our partners talk about their feelings. Conflict resolution is another set of skills we can practice. There's not one specific tool that will work for you. It's a bit of trial and error, but I do know that more of the same is more of the same. So anything you try, a new tool, a new technique, or a new course or a new book, is better than repeating the same patterns. So if you're in the roommate phase, don't give up just yet. There's still plenty of things to think about and to try. And I know I'm biased, but a good starting point is to take that care and intimacy quiz to get an idea of what part of your relationship dynamic needs to be worked on first. If you take the quiz, you sign up with your email, you can get some of the tools, tips, and tricks that I share here in my private practice with couples. And obviously, if you're in Los Angeles, give me a call. My team and I work with partners all the time. If I can't fit you into my calendar myself, I have an amazing team of therapists who can. They're able to work with a range of budgets too. So don't let money be the reason to put off calling. All the links to connect with me are below.